Transformers 1 was absolutely worth all the hype it never got, except from that one person on Twitter. As someone who's never engaged with Transformers much outside of the Michael Bay films, I didn't really know what to expect going in, but ended up walking out with one of the best movie experiences I've ever had. I'll be strictly speaking about this film from the perspective of someone who's only watched the Bay movies, so if I mention anything I liked that was already part of the series lore, just keep that in mind. The opening of the film is just immediately exciting and well done, simultaneously giving us an exposition dump while introducing Orion's character, showing us that this information is crucial to his character's wants. And it never feels boring to listen to because the whole thing is a break-in. The longer the info dump goes on, the closer the security robot gets to his location, meaning the whole opening has this underlying tension. Also, the idea that Cybertron is actually a giant transformer is such a cool concept. Plus, it actually matters to the ending of the film. I love the way they show off Cybertron through this exciting chase sequence. The clear power difference explored through their size and the complexity of their design. How much harder it is for Orion to move around Iacon compared to them. This setting is so beautiful to look at, but you're too caught up in the thrill of Orion's escape. The entire opening tells so much through the lens of conflict. At its core, Transformers 1 explores how those in power will rob the lower classes of their autonomy, while gaslighting them into accepting the bare minimum. Each of the four main characters represent a different side of this message. Orion represents those who refuse to accept the status quo, constantly seeking knowledge and ways to make life better for those born into lesser circumstances. D16 represents the everyday masses, someone who understands that the status quo is unjust, but has bought into the belief that there's no changing things. Alita strikes an interesting middle ground between the two of them. Like Orion, she has ambitions of something more, but like D16, can only envision it through obeying protocol. B represents the truth of Sentinel's rule, someone put into a place where elevation to higher status is impossible, showing how Sentinel maintains the status quo by silencing people who are a threat to it. While B was technically put here because he sucked at his other jobs, it nonetheless shows how Sentinel views the Cogless as expendable, as all four main characters were effectively thrown into the trash the minute they were seen as a problem. A commonality between all the main characters is their admiration for Sentinel, a man who gaslights everyone into seeing him as a glorious savior. And I love the way the film slowly hints at his betrayal, the way he constantly uses celebration as a distraction and a way to keep everyone complicit, while cutting them off of ways from learning the truth, such as sealing off the archives, throwing important information into the garbage, and cutting off passages to the surface. These people are quite literally forced to live under a rock, and each of the main characters' reactions to his betrayal is different. While Orion is hurt, he's mostly validated in believing that something was wrong, as he was already motivated to make life different, where D16 admired Sentinel deeply and cared about upholding protocol, only to realize his hero killed his idol Megatronus while making him live a lie. When D16 was first introduced, it took me a second to realize that this was Megatron. I'd only ever known him as the villain of the franchise, so getting to see his descent into the character he's known as in the series was such a fresh experience for me, especially the way it's framed through his tragic friendship with Orion. The film really does give you the sense that these two will have each other's backs through anything, but also builds into the eventual downfall of their relationship. The way Orion acts selfishly and D gets dragged into it, which D often responds to with joking threats of violence, which is some pretty tragic foreshadowing. The slow divide in their friendship feels entirely organic to both their characters. The final sequence of the film where both of them obtain their iconic names is just so incredible, and the way that both obtain their powers highlights an important difference in their characters. D16 obtains the power of Megatronus the same way Sentinel did, through killing someone and taking it for themselves, where Orion obtained the Matrix of Leadership in the opposite fashion. Primus gave his life to create Cybertron, an act of self-sacrifice, which is exactly what Orion does for Sentinel, not because he forgives Sentinel, but because he wishes for the new order of Cybertron to be built on mercy, especially since Sentinel built his own order by murdering the 13 Primes who held power. Megatron is born through taking life, Optimus Prime is born through sacrificing his own. There's also a symbolic difference in their power. The Matrix of Leadership is given to the true leader of Cybertron, where Megatronus' cog was owned by Sentinel, who used it as a symbol of his false rule, both of them wielding power owned by the rulers of Cybertron, one who was given that power and one who took it for himself. This is easily my favorite version of both these characters, though I understand as someone who's only watched the Bay films that isn't a high bar. That being said, I heavily encourage everyone to watch this film. As someone who's never cared about Transformers before, I absolutely want to see this film get a sequel. It's beautiful, thoughtful, funny, and a dramatic piece of filmmaking, and I hope people will remember it for years to come, as it's easily one of my new favorite films of all time. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.